Hi guys. Got my TV up. I call the challenge shimmers, love it. Hi to everyone who's joined. Hayes, Handy, Ghost, Colt, Dr. Mears, anyone, Social Gamer, Hammock, Steps. Right, it's been a whole week. I haven't had any wine in that time, so let's start. I'm gonna take it a bit easy tonight because I'm still feeling a little bit funny in my stomach, so the one bottle tonight, take it slowly. I can hear stuff. Actually hear anything. Let me just test my hertz. And here. Cool. Okay, so trying to remember where we were at. Let me just connect to Flubits. Oops. That connect? I don't think that connected. Oh, there we go. Do I normally stream at 648p? No, it should be 720p. It's streaming at a weird... Oh, thank you for the follow, Social Gamer. Appreciated. Yeah, I've not done anything, so I don't know why it would be streaming at a different resolution. It should be 720p. It should be 1080p, really. I haven't got it set up to do that, I don't think. Weird. Yeah, I definitely haven't changed anything, so... I don't know if I can check that. How can I check that? Output... Stream... Oh, it says output scaled resolution. Oh yeah, 1152 by 648. That's weird. It must have always been that though. It must have always been that. Because I haven't changed anything, so... Okay. Actually that wine tastes really good, I've missed that. So we didn't do the Dissect stream this week. I was going to do Bubble Bobble. We will do that on Thursday. I think it's a really good game to take a look at. It kind of is fairly related to what we've been doing with the character sprites. And I think there's a couple of things we'd like to add into it as well. So there's, I know Hayes was asking to take a look at the continue sequence and try and kind of increase the timer on that. So we'll do that. Along with some other things as well, we'll maybe have a look at how the levels are built up and see if we can play around with changing the levels, because the level data is quite compact. There's 100 levels, I believe, so it'd be good to kind of see how they managed to fit all that into 64K. Okay, cool. Let's take a look at what we've got in the game so far. I've got an idea what we should start with today, but I just want to see where we're actually at in the game, so hopefully everything loads up. Will I talk about the new intro screen I've made? I can talk a little bit about it if you want. What do you want to know about it? It's we put the little characters in as well, quite pleased with those, they look cool. The intro screen. Let's have a quick look at that. I can explain what's going on in it. It's quite easy, really. So this is the code for it. It's available on the GitHub. So if you've got access to the GitHub, you've got the code for it. There's a variable here. If I define night, it will load in nighttime. If I turn it off, it will load in daytime. What it also does is at compile time as well, it pulls in somewhere near the bottom, I think. It pulls in this message text file, so in the assets folder there's a message text file, and I can just change that to be whatever text I want it to be. Okay. Yeah, you can run it on real hardware. This is just simple C64 code, or not so simple as Amok says. So the most difficult thing about this was the DYCP, the bounty text here. If I load that into the debugger, I can just run it through the... You'll see what's actually happening better in the debugger, I think. Let's go through it bit by bit. So first of all, the sprites. So there's two sets of, well, three sprite splits. There's one split for the clouds. The clouds can appear in two shades of grey and white. The white ones move the fastest, the dark greys move the slowest, and the light greys move in the middle. As they come off the end here, they get put back on over this side, and it's just repeating, just picking a random location to spawn them as they go off the screen and reappear on the other side again. Then there's two splits for sprites. There's one split here, which has the waves. It also has this expanded blue sprite here, because there was a bit of glitching around the text around this area here. So I put this expanded blue sprite to cover it. Oops. And so the first split handles the waves in the top half of the ocean, and the second split handles the waves in the bottom half of the ocean. And the waves are just a simple animation. You can see the animation here in this area. It's just an arc that appears and disappears with a few colours in it. The text is the text with the colour going through it is inverted text, so it's background that's shown through there, and then we're just doing a colour scroll through the background. Same thing we did for the scores in the game at one point. And then the reflection is exactly the same effect. It's just with the font inverted upside down, so it's just a copy of the font but flipped upside down vertically. And then the scroller that scrolls the colours through that is just using two colours. It's using the sky colour and the water colour, so you get this kind of shimmering effect on it rather than a colour effect. And then at the same time as it's doing that, I do a shell and shimmer through the text to kind of scroll it left and right as we're going along. Oh, the music's drowning me out slightly. Okay, no problem. Go. And then finally, there's the DYCP effect. So you can see if I put the cursor here, you can see the bottom half of the screen has this entire thing covered with characters, and they don't actually move, they don't actually change. The only thing that happens is the screen scrolls 8 pixels to the left, and then it redraws the font again. And all I'm doing is for every column in that message, I'm just working out where the letter should be, which vertical position it should be, and drawing it into these characters here. So if I go into I can never get these buttons right. Go into here and put my cursor down there. You can see in the character set's being updated on the fly. So for every frame that gets redrawn. I do find a bit yeah, I'm not surprised. I've really not been good at all. Thanks, Hayes. Yeah, I don't feel great, to be honest. I'm not going to do a 5 AM 2 bottles of wine and a tequila stream. That's for sure. I will put a little in the DYCP counter, wherever it is, the DYCP calculator. Stars. I'll just put an increment, border increment, so you can see where it's happening. Main IQ, 2 stars, clouds, waves. see if it's this bit. Where is it? Clouds, calculate ripple, DYCP stuff. It's a bit messy, this code as well, because I did kind of throw it together. There's no real effort gone into what's being shown. Scroll message, and it's not that one. CPU vertical, it's probably this one here. Okay, so let me do this. Oops. On that, you should see roughly in the border where quite a lot. But bear in mind as well that this is happening at the same time as the rasters as well. So all the stuff that's updating the clouds, all the stuff that's updating this and this, and the waves, that's all happening within here as well. So it's a bit less than that. It's probably around about here. So it's probably about half the raster time to redraw that. There's a couple of ways could make it more efficient, but I mean for now this is fine. I'm not trying to write a demo or anything, so. But yeah, there you go. So that's that. Didn't really want to go into that in too much detail. As I say, the code is there. It's a bit of a mess, but you can play with it. And if you just change this define, you cancel it out or enable it. If you define night, exactly the same thing, but instead of clouds, you have a starscape. And the starscape is simpler than the clouds. It just picks a random position for stars to appear, and then it animates through this kind of thing, and it changes the colours on here a little bit, but everything else is the same. Cool. But that's not why we're here today. We're here to do the game. Let's have a look. Packland, yeah. Oh, do you know what? I think Steps sent me the instructions for Packland, and there's two control schemes, and somehow I picked the worst control scheme of the two, and it just made it really difficult. I couldn't play that game at all. It was horrible. A general question: do you take advantage of all rest-aligned CPU cycles, and do you have to be careful with where you display changes? I do. I wouldn't say I take advantage of all the cycles. I mean, there's obviously a bit of free space left to do some stuff, but yeah, you definitely have to be careful of where you do stuff. So, for instance, I've got sprite splits, so they absolutely have to be at the right place for the previous sprites to be drawn completely. Thank you for the host, Social Gamer. Appreciated. Elang not available on Commodore 64. I don't think back then it was. It is available now, but not directly. As Hayes said, you have to cross-compile it. And to be honest with you, it's not as efficient as just writing something in assembly anyway. I mean, you can do simple stuff, but when you need to do very cycle exact things and really squeeze the most out of the machine, you're not going to get better than pure assembly, unfortunately. Okay, so we got our little dudes in. We got a throw-in action. I remember doing that. And we got some basic collision. So the way the collision works is it only collides with the white areas of the foreground platforms, which allows us to kind of throw like that up through a platform. Which is fine because we want to be able to jump up through the platforms as well. So why shouldn't the projectiles go through as well? One thing we did, or I did notice on the last stream, was that the precision of the collision. Let me slow this down a little bit. The precision of the collision wasn't, I like that, it rhymes. Wasn't that great. So the first thing I want to do today is kind of change that a little bit. You see when it hits something going down, it's way less accurate than if it hits something left to right. Right to left. It's the same if it hits down or to the right, it's going to be, the collision's going to be quite terrible. You see here, this right, God, it's a bit too slow now, isn't it? It's taking maybe 5 or 6 pixels away before where it hits, where it should be pretty much bang on. Whereas if I go over the other side and throw, God, I should probably speed it up slightly. It's a bit more accurate that way. It's still hitting, because it's still hitting down. You can see on when it's hitting to the left, it's fine, and that's just because of the way we calculate the position and the way that the sprite is drawn. So we're calculating the position just based on what four characters it's currently being drawn in, and we're checking any of them for collision. Which means if it's in the top left, the very top left of that grid, then the collision's pretty accurate, because if it moves 1 pixel outside that, then it's a whole new character that it needs to check for collision. Which is why anything colliding with from the bottom or to the left is going to be quite accurate, but it's going to be less accurate the other way. So what we can do is we can change our routine, and I think that's the first thing we should do. It's a fairly simple change, and then once we've got that going, we can start taking a look at some other functionalities. I was thinking maybe we could add the player slowdown, so the player growth and slowdown routines, just to see how that kind of fits in with the current kind of look and style. I really like these guys though, they look kind of cool. Nice, simple, not too many frames in the walk cycle. Got a nice little throw in action. It's obvious that they're doing a throw. And there's a nice eat animation to go with these as well. So I'm really enjoying this wine. See with inline assembly. Yeah, I mean, you can do that. So there's a framework called Millfork, which is kind of few people on the Discord, Monsters Go Boom in particular, quite a lot. It's a cross-platform C-like language with the ability to cross-compile for lots of different 8-bit platforms. And I think that allows you to do inline assembly. So you'd be better off using something like that that's kind of intended for 8-bit. C isn't really that well suited to 8-bit computers. I mean, you can make it work with 8-bit computers, but you want something kind of specifically designed for them, and Millfork is. Let me find you a link for that actually, because it's a useful one to take a look at. Go. Put it in the right chat window. So this is more targeted at the 8-bit computers. The throw animation is still working great. Notice the ball comes out at the very beginning. Oh yeah. Yeah, we can change that as well. The thing we've got to be careful of with the throw animation, it probably won't matter because it's quite a quick animation, is one of the kind of rules of game making is if it's a player response, if it's a player action, it should be almost instant. So when you press the button, you should see the action immediately. So the classic example is swinging a sword. So when a player swings a sword in a game, the action is fairly quick and fairly responsive to the button. However, with an enemy, you want to kind of exaggerate the anticipation for that. So with an enemy swinging a sword, the action won't be instant. There'll be a little bit of kind of backswing first, and then it will go, and it just kind of adds anticipation to it. So you've got to be kind of careful when you do it with a player that it doesn't feel too disconnected from the action. But we can take a look at that, sure. Let's first of all let's have a play around with the collision. Where's my other thing? There it is. How big performance over anything that has compared to well-made ASM? I mean, you're never going to beat pure ASM just because you can do things. You can come up with solutions that the compiler wouldn't necessarily come up with. Saying that, there are ways to write assembly language that the compiler, a good compiler, would absolutely beat every time. It all depends on kind of what your optimization, what your hand optimized assembly is like. If you can optimize assembly well by hand, you will beat the compiler. If you are kind of bad at it and you're just kind of brute forcing approaches, then you will probably find that the compiler will beat you at the optimization. But the thing with Commodore programming is you kind of have to learn how to optimize things. You don't have enough cycles to write kind of brute force code. You have to be optimal with it. Hi Sagittac, welcome to the stream. Right, let's give this a go. So we should have somewhere in our either the soft sprite routine, which I don't think it's going to be this one because this is just a general sprite routine. Probably in the projectiles. Here we go. So I'm going to open up the soft sprites in the split view just so we can go and have a look at the code should we need to. God, I'm failing on so many levels at the moment. Thanks for the stream, Dom. Welcome to the stream. Commodorks, I love that. That's a brilliant term. I feel like I should be offended by it, but I'm not. I love it. So here's where we do. Oh no, this is foot collision, so it's not that. We need projectiles, is what we want. It's player. There we go. So here's our update function, and here's our collision function. Cool. Thank you for the follow, Lucidius. Welcome to the stream. Thanks for the stream, Don. Welcome to the host. Yeah, Commodore is something to be proud of. And I am. The more and more I do this, the more I see it. This is a really cool hobby. I love it. I wouldn't be doing anything else. Okay, so this is our collision routine. It's taking the screen lookup, which we're calculating from the projectile. So we're passing in the index of the sprite that we want to check in the X register, and then we're looking up so we're just taking the very top pixel of it, the top left pixel at 0, 0, and then we're converting that into character space, and then we're just assuming that that is one character, then there's another character, and we're just taking the block of 4 from there. But the problem with that is if our sprite is right in the top corner of that 16 by 16 block, then the only characters we actually care about is that one in the corner. We don't care about the other 3, and so that's what we need to do. We need to actually do this 4 times, 1 for each character. So we are taking the Y and the X here, taking the screen lookup and storing it in collision data, and then this is where we do the other stuff. So here what we're doing is we're taking the other 3 characters by increasing our screen position by 1, by 20, by 39, and then by 1 again to get the block of 4, and then we just keep ORing that value into the collision data. We need to get rid of that, and instead what we need to do is do this calculation again. So we've got collision data, and now we need to do this exact same calculation again, but this time we need to add add 7 to it. So we've got 0, 1, yeah, 7, because 7 is the pixel on the far side of that. What was that? I missed that. scroll back up through my... I'm hearing the alerts, but I'm missing what they actually are. Scroll. Follow from Gunstar. Thanks for the follow, Gunstar. So we're going to do the same again. So I'm going to put some comments in here just to say top left 0 0, and we'll do so this is, we're adding 7 to the Y, so this is bottom left 7. So the X is pretty much the same, it's the Y that changes. And then we take the same character, just need to all the value with collision data before storing it in there. So now we've got the collision of the top left corner and the bottom left corner of our 8x8 block of pixels that make up our character. And then we need to do the same again for the top right. Copy it from this one actually. So the top right is a little bit different because we're now going to affect the X value, and if we affect the X value, then we actually need to deal with the MSB as well. But what we can do is, because the screen is 320 wide in terms of pixels, and we're already doing it here, we shift the MSB first, so we get either set the carry bit or we clear the carry bit, depending on if the MSB is set, and then we do the rest divided by 8 here. So at this point here, we've shifted the MSB and we've shifted the LSB, including this. So now this value here is going to be 0 to 160. So at this point we can add our value. We need to add half of the value rather than the whole value. So we'll just add 4, that should be enough. We can't half 7 because it's 3.5. So add 4 there. We can clear the carry bit there because we've already used it in this location. And this is fine. And so that's the top right. And then to do the... Oh, actually need to get rid of that there. Copy that. And then to do the bottom right, we do the same again, but we leave that bottom right, but we leave this bit in here as well. And that should be it. That should be enough for that collision now to be more accurate. So instead of being the kind of rough accuracy of where the character is being drawn, in terms of the actual 4 characters that make up the software sprite, we're now actually basing it on the pixel edges of the 8x8 sprite that we're trying to draw. So something else that I want to try today was something that someone on YouTube commented on with regards to animating these projectiles. So if you remember in the last stream we talked about what it would take to actually animate the projectiles. And I said at the time that we'd need to create a new character for each of these projectiles for each frame of that animation, because it's pre-calculated in front. And each one of those pre-calculations is taking up 1K of memory or something like that. But what somebody pointed out, I can't remember their name unfortunately, was that if instead of creating a new kind of cached version of each sprite, each frame of the animation, we just animate depending on its X position. So if it's its X positions, there's 4 X positions that the sprite can be in: 0, 2, 4, and 6, because the pixels are too wide. And basically, each one of those is pre-calculated and pre-drawn. So all we'd have to do is make the animation 4 frames long or 2 frames, and alternate it across those 4 pixels. And that way we can have up to 4 frames of animation without increasing the size of the cached bitmaps at all. Did you lose the projectiles after the change and went throw more than twice? You can only throw 2 projectiles at a time. I'm not sure what you mean there. Okay, let me just load this character setting. I think it's that one, isn't it? Yeah, there we go. Thank you for the follow, LC Pablo. Welcome to the stream. LC or IC? I think it's LC. So this is our character set. And at the moment what's happening is when you define you couldn't register a software sprite. So we say this is software sprite 1. Software sprite 0 means that it's nothing is drawn. It's a way of turning off the software sprite. So you set software sprite 0 to be type 0 and it will disappear. And then at the beginning of the program we register these sprites. And at the moment we just give it 1 character, but what we could do is give it 4 characters. And depending on what position across the screen the sprite is at, it can use a different one. So we're going to give that a try shortly by doing something simple, you know, like I don't know, what's the other colour that we can use? We can use the green, can't we? So I don't know, making a green band kind of move through it or something. I'll do the change now so you can get an idea of what I mean. I mean, this could be a lot more complicated, this animation, but it gives you an idea of what we can do. Actually, there's one too many stripes in here, but it's fine. Should be enough to test it out, I think. So we can animate across those 4, so we'll see the green thing going up. So the only problem with this is it's depending on which way you throw. So if you throw left to right, the animation will play one way. If you throw right to left, it will play the other way. Which I don't think is a huge problem. If we make the animation fairly kind of generic, that doesn't rely on it moving in one direction, it'll look absolutely fine, I think. You lured me with the C64 game. Oh, good. But we'll come back to that in a minute. I'm going to save that. I'm going to use that as a test. So let's just test out the changes that we've done. So hopefully we should see at least the same kind of quality of collision that we were seeing before. Hopefully a bit more accurate. So I can't quite see that. Slow it down a little bit. Okay. But it's going a little bit more into the ground than I would have liked it to have done. But it is... definitely going further than it was before. Going a bit too far now, I think. Let's try... really could do with some white walls on this, because it's hard to get a side-on collision. Seriously, it's wrong. Something's not quite right there. So let's have a look at what's going on there. It's going too far into the floor. Uh-oh. That's colliding into... Yeah, some things it's colliding into when it shouldn't be doing. Oh yeah, broken something. Okay. It's to be expected. So let's just take out the bits that we've just done, and let's just see if it works with just the one character. Can't think why that would suddenly not be working, but let's just take out those bits. This was our original code. I'm going to leave that down there. Come back to that shortly. The collision is only with colorable objects, so that's fine. We restore the X when we've come out of it again. Let's Is there anything else we need to do? No, it looks okay. Let's just try that with the 1. Should be working with 1. Yeah, definitely helpful to add labels. Okay, so we're getting the same behavior pretty much. We're getting collision. It's like this is saying it's colorable, so I just want to double check that we've not got some weird flag in here. No, none of them are colorable. So the only ones that should be colorable are these white platforms, and they should have the value 3 on them to say that they're solid, is material 1, and colorable, which is material 2. And they all do. But it's not that. So let's have a look at our routine. So we take the projectile's Y position, we divide it by 8, which is correct. Then we look on the buffer. We don't look at the screen, we look at the buffer, because remember, the buffer doesn't have the sprites on it, whereas the screen does. So we'd get kind of readings with those. We store that at the screen lookup, which is our labeled vector here. We take the X position and we divide that by 8. And then we look at the screen. We load the char colors and we store it in collision data. This should be correct. For some reason that doesn't seem to be working with the other areas for some reason. So when we AND that value with player collision colorable, we shouldn't be getting destroys. Okay, let me have a think. If I turn the original code back on, so bear in mind I haven't changed anything in this section here. Just wrote this comment above it. And the original code was just looking at sequential characters in the block. Why is that not loading? Oh, because I've got it. Yeah, so this was the original code, and this is definitely causing our collision problems. For some reason, I can throw through. So when I was trying to throw before, it wasn't letting me throw through that background object. I'm not doing anything additional here. Okay. Close that. I'm going to actually load the collision data. I don't think I need to do this, but because I'm pretty sure that should be still the same because we're using it here. In fact, it has to be. Double check that. Start with a bug. This is always good. So what I was interested in is why the projectile was disappearing in some cases here. It's not doing it now. Okay, seems to be fine now. I have no idea why that would be the case. Okay, let's slowly introduce these one at a time then. So let's introduce the bottom left one first. So this should fix our... Well, not fix, it should improve our kind of collision with the floor slightly. Yeah, if anybody is on Flubits, if they can test this as we go along just to see if there is anything strange happening. That collision looks wrong now. It's happening too soon. Oh, it's because the other ones... Okay, I'm going to apply them all. This works now, it just makes no sense because it's exactly the same code as it was before. Well, with one extra line in, but it shouldn't make any difference, that one line. Oh, it's getting stuck way too soon. Okay, I'm going to check the MSB stuff. So the stuff that this bit here, just want to double check this. So we're going to roll the MSB into the carry flag, and then we're going to roll it into the LSB value here. So if the carry was set for, should be fine. Should be absolutely fine. I don't see why this is wrong. Bottom corner of the tile. Let's have a look. Okay, let's check that tile. So it's the bottom corner of this thing. Maybe we do have it set up like that for some reason. Either that one or that one. Yeah, none of these have a material. I feel like it's getting one of the lookups wrong. I feel like this this lookup code here is incorrect for some reason, which makes me suspect that this is wrong. I'm just trying to figure out why it might be wrong. I can't think why it would be. So we're taking the X value, we're dividing it by 2 here, adding the upper bit on if MSB was set, and with that screen position divided by 2, adding 4 should give us the position that was 8 from there. So I'm not entirely sure why that would be broken. The fact that it's getting stuck on that bottom corner, let's have a look at something. Actually, we can look at it in the map. So this is where it's getting stuck on this character here. And only here as well, which is the weird thing. I'm going to try throwing from up here when there is nothing else in the way. So in the same kind of line, but up at the top. Oops. Alright, there we go. Hard to explain at the moment. I'm pretty sure it's this add 4, so I'm going to start by just removing this add 4. So let's just take that out. So now it's, I mean, the collision's going to be wrong, but I want to see if it prevents that problem from happening. Because at least if it does that, then we know we can start looking at other reasons why, the reasons why that might be happening. So, okay, let's try that. God, my head really doesn't think quite well today at all. No, okay, so it's still happening down here. It seems adding anything beyond the first check breaks it. Oh, I know why. I know why. So we load this value, comma x, but then we do a transfer to x down here. So I just need to, before each one, I just need to load this value from there. This happens all the time. This is one of the problems with having so few registers. It's very easy to forget which ones you actually required at which times. So I think this should fix it. I've even got it labeled temp. I should have known that it was going to be bashed at some point. There we go. And we see it's a lot more accurate. There is still a tiny little bit of colour clash, and I think that's because what we're doing now, get up to, because we're checking 7 pixels down, we're still within the same block, so we might need to check 8 pixels down, same as we're doing to the left, to the right. So notice how the colour clash doesn't happen when it's hitting on the right edge. It only happens when it's going down. You see the little flash. It's not hugely important because we will want the ground to change colours, but we may want some projectiles that don't change the colour of ground, so the fact that it's flashing like that is not a good thing. So wherever we add 7, we'll instead add 8, because this is essentially what we're doing here with the add 4, because we're adding 4 to a halved value there, so that should hopefully stop the colour clash now. I'm glad I worked that one out. And there we go. And now the only colour clash we're getting is the expected colour clash as it crosses over background areas, which is fine. Cool. Yeah, I've been doing a bit of disassembly this week. It's been a lot of fun, actually. I've enjoyed it a lot. Right, I'm going to take a short... Actually, no. I'm going to give it 5 minutes, and then I'm going to take a short break. What should we do after the break? So, yeah, I think we can look at changing the throw animation so that it happens... so the projectile happens at the end of the throw animation instead of the beginning of the throw animation. Ball dies before it hits the ground. Perhaps it dies a little bit too soon now, doesn't it? I mean, the other option we've got as well is we could have it so that the collision is only on the top the top half of the ball, and so it needs the ball to go at least halfway into the ground before it dies, and then we could have the colour clash negated by when the projectiles are drawn. If an area is colourable, then it doesn't draw anything of the sprite in that area. It leaves that area blank. So we can play around with that a little bit. I think it does need to be better than that, actually. You're right. If we change it down, so if we change these 8 values, change them to something less, like 6, we're going to get colour clash, but it should go a little bit into the ground this time. So if you don't try and boot up at 20% speed. Actually, the colour clash isn't that bad at all. and we can always fix that later. I'd much rather it be accurate. That does feel a lot more accurate. And as I say, we can even change that. If we change that right down to like, I don't know, 3 or something like that, we should see it go like halfway into the ground before it disappears. You can always fix the glitch that's caused by the color clash with a slightly different approach to the way that we draw the projectiles. Because that the color clash glitch is very minor. It's not huge at all. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it like that. I think that's pretty good. Sideways collision I'm not too bothered about as long as it's relatively accurate. It's the ground collision that's the important one. We can always adjust that a little bit as well. I might do that next. Might have a look at getting rid of the color clash when it hits the ground, so you'll just see it disappear into the ground rather than change the ground yellow and appear above it. It'll almost look like it's going behind. And then with that in place, we can actually reduce the collision down to a single point in the middle. So we're only doing, instead of doing 4 checks, we'll do a single check right in the middle of the ball. And then anywhere if that thing touches anything, then it disappears, which means wherever it hits, it will always absorb slightly into whatever it's absorbing into. So the first thing we'll do in order to make that work is we'll change the routine that draws these soft sprites to ignore drawing on anything that's a colorable like this. So it just will not draw on it won't try and replace those characters with any. Yeah, that's certainly possible. So now we've got soft sprites, we can quite easily make an animation, disappear animation that could use something like that. Again, we'd have to be careful how we handle it. We may have to do some clever tricks with just moving it across. Now I'm not too fussed about that. We can always add that kind of polish a little bit later on, but I do want to get this kind of ground collision spot on. I want to get rid of that color clash, and I want to make it look like the ball's hitting the ground a bit better. I think if we colour the ground when they land as well, that might actually compensate for not having an animation there, so that's probably a good reason to leave it till the end. Alright, I'm going to take 5 minutes, guys, and I'll be right back. Right back, guys. And I'm back. Right. So let's start by taking a look at this colour clash when it hits the ground here. So the problem is, colour clash we kind of expect in some places in the background, that's fine. With the foreground, we don't want to see any colour clash really when it hits the ground, because that's going to be something that is going to be happening a lot. The ground's going to be white, so it's going to really stand out, especially when there's lots of colours flying around. So let's try and get rid of that. So you'll see when it's drawn, I can pause it as it goes. I pause this in time, probably not. Maybe I can pause it. So you see there, the reason we're getting colour clash is because it's trying to draw this sprite into these. So what we need to do is, when we actually do the soft sprite routine, anytime that where is it? Anytime that oh, where's it go? Anytime that sprite is going to be drawn over one of these characters with the white on, so in other words that we have the flag colorable set to true, then we simply don't do the drawing on that position. So let's have a look at our soft sprite routine. This was getting quite big and lengthy, but we should be able to work it into here without causing it to slow down. But first of all, let's find the loop where it's drawing. Right, we've got get font lookup here. So I think what this is doing, so this is grabbing a character and then this is getting the actual lookup data for it. So if we go and find that font lookup routine, it's this here. So this is taking that value in the accumulator. Oops. It's taking that value in the accumulator and it's working out where that lives in our font. So given that the sprite has hit one of these here, that would be this character. So it looks at where this is in memory so that it can then use that to draw to our new location. So you can see in here child data left is vector 5, so it's drawing vector 5 is original data. So it's taking that original data and it's storing it into the new location here. Now instead what we can do, we can completely skip that section. The carry is set, so we could set the carry bit or something. Let's have a look. So in this locations we're blitting. This is the simple, this is the full blit, and we just want to do this basically. We never want to do this bit. And so what we would do, I'm trying to think of the easiest way to do this and keep it optimal as well. Okay, so what we can do here is we can create another temporary variable. We've got this offset y variable here. I'm going to create another one. I'm going to call it test offset y, and that will be temp 8. Go and make sure that it's in the 0 page. It is. And 8, okay. And then before each one of these checks, actually in here, no, we do it here. So if we're going to load y with our offset y and store that in our test set y, and we're going to check that bit instead. I'm just going to check what it's doing in each one. So in the first case it's comparing if it's more than that. Yeah, if it's more than that. And here we're actually doing some stuff to the offset here. Oh, we don't actually have a temp offset. Okay, we already have that. Use that value. Yeah, temp offset, there we go. Perfect. So we've already got a value that's kind of set up for doing this. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get it so there's a little check as it draws. But so for every character that it draws, it can either draw all 8 rows or none of the rows. So it's trying to work out whether or not it needs to do the fast approach to drawing, which is just draw the original character in that location, or whether it needs to do the slow one, which is draw the sprite over it. So all I'm trying to do is force it in the case where it's over a background that's colorable. So it's got the colorable flag set. In that case, it's not going to take the slow approach. It's always going to do the long approach. Sorry, it's not going to do the slow approach. It's always going to take the quick approach, the simple versus the full, basically. So here we're storing in the temp offset, and all I need to do is if we'll return carry set or clear from here. So if the carry is clear, then we just store the Y. We just store the offset as normal. Otherwise, we'll put the value 10 in, because 10 is bigger than the whole thing. So that means that this will always run. This simple blip will always run. So we can test that quickly. So if I just set the carry flag here, what we should see is that the top left corner of the software sprite never gets drawn. That works. Let's give that a try. Where's my speed? There it is. Okay, I do need to slow it down because I can't see that happening. Yeah, I'm not convinced that this is going to work actually. Let's get it working for this top left corner and then we can worry about the rest. So it's definitely not doing the normal behavior there. Because we're comparing with this offset. It's more than that offset, which it's never going to be because it's at 10. The offset is only ever going to be from 0 to 8. Then it jumps to the full blip. Increases Y. It's back to here again. Oh, the problem is it's never doing this bit here. This is the problem. I'm gonna go back here. Ah, yeah, that's not gonna work. Right, I need to think of a different way of doing this. So do you guys get the problem I'm trying to solve here? I'm trying to draw this this sprite, but only over locations that don't already have colorable characters. So this is another place we can do it, draw all the sprites. So here we're getting. Okay, let's try doing it here. So if we just rearrange this slightly and put that there like this. But the first thing we can actually do before we draw the character, we can load what's already in that location. This really should be from buffer though. Let's go and have a look at the buffer, if I can remember what we've labelled that. I do apologise if I sound a bit droney tonight. I'm kind of struggling a little bit. Buffer LSB. Okay. Yeah. Let's do it from here first. We can always set up the buffer rows at a later date and do that here. Let's just get it working with a single one first. We want to take what's at that location on the screen, and we want to get the same stuff that we get from the collision. So we want to do this. Which means we also want to Maybe I just need more wine. And my head just isn't thinking straight at all tonight. It's straight in. Okay. And then we need to that is anything other than 0, then we skip the whole next section, like so. We'll load the X back here because we do need the X on this bit here, and we need it here as well. So this again should not draw this top corner if it's over collidable stuff, so let's make that. Very hard to watch Twitch on a C64, yeah. Feel better when something not so obvious to you. Thanks. Yeah, this is a slightly tricky one. I don't think it's helping that my head feels really horrible and cloudy. So we need to keep the Y value, so that needs to be that. That's correct. Trying to think what that's about now. Ugh. Be enough, I think. That in there. Okay. Tequila is definitely not the answer, especially the tequila that I had last week. It was disgusting. Really didn't feel great drinking that stuff. Okay, don't need that Y there because we've already set it up for that one. I'm going to keep that separation in so I can see what's going on. In this case, Y is 28. That should be colon. In this case, Y is 29. Okay. I think that might actually do the trick. Let's see. I said that about the last one and it didn't work, so... Oh, I think that worked. So now it's not drawing. If it tries to draw... Slow it down even more. Now it's disappearing into the ground. We're not getting any colour clash and we're getting it disappearing into the ground. So what we can do now is we can change the collision routine slightly. So instead of using each corner, we can use the centre of the ball, and that way we'll get it'll absorb more into the ground, and it will be the same on all sides as well. So let's simplify the hell out of this equation, this routine equation. See, I can't even talk straight. But let's get rid of all of these except the first one. This is all we care about, and we're going to make it center. And we're going to do it 3, 3, or thereabouts. It's probably going to be. Well, actually, what is the actual size of it? It's 7 by 4. Well, 7 by 8. So let's do it at 4, 3 like that. So this is the Y position. So at this point, we need to add 3. and here we'll add 2. We're adding 2 because we're adding it to the half value, so we don't have to worry about the MSB. At this point we have the X value divided by 2, so if we just add 2 to that we get 4.3. So now when we run this we should get sprites that kind of absorb slightly better into the background. I really wish it wouldn't save my speed when I reset. Who wants to start a Commodore at 10% speed? No one. Cool, that looks fine, and now we're only using 1 collision point for the projectile, so that's made the code way more efficient. And that absorb should happen on all sides as well, which it is doing. That's looking pretty good actually. That's looking good. Alright, cool. Oh, I wasn't sure that was ever going to work, to be honest. Watching Twitch on Commodore. I think someone had it on 1084, didn't they? Run through a 1084 monitor. So I was looking at it thinking, oh, that's kind of cool, they got video, and then I realised, oh, it was me on it. They were watching my stream. Kind of cool. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. That looks nice. The colour clash is now limited to the background only. It's never going to draw. If there's a colourable object, it's never going to draw. You're still going to be able to throw things through the background like so. Fine, that's what we wanted. But now, anytime that you try and make that hit the white bit, the colour clash will be cancelled out. It just will not draw over those. Yeah, cool. If you could, Steps, just give it a bit of a blast on there. Good. Oh, it was you, Sagitak. Yes. I knew it was somebody posted it in Discord, and I remember looking at it a few times, and so that's cool. They got Twitch running on it, and then I realised it was actually my Twitch. Cool. Right. Okay. So what's next? So I think we're going to look at the throw animation. We're going to switch when the throw actually happens. So if we look in our player, we've probably got a create projectile or something. In fact, let's have a look. Let's move the projectiles over here now. Now we've got those working. Let's have a look what our functions are called. Player can shoot. Actually, just bring them up like this. Spawn projectile. Okay, so this is what we're looking for. We're looking for where we spawn the projectile, and we spawn it here. So we spawn it when fire is pressed, and I'm guessing we've got one for player 1 and one for player 2, so there's probably another one down here somewhere. Yeah, one for player 1, one for player 2. So this is the block of code that's going to do it. We set in the player state to throwing, which is going to trigger the animation. So all we need to do is find the throwing state, update in the animations. Are we throwing? Let me select the animations. Draw player. Yeah, here we go. Are we throwing? Is it player 1 and player 2? Player 1, player 2. Are we throwing? Yes, we are throwing. Grab the next throw frame. There should be something to say that we've stopped throwing, so that's what I'm looking for, which is this bit here. Okay, turn off state if needed. So at this point we've stopped throwing, so at that point is when we want to throw the actual projectile. So we need to change things a little bit here. We need to get the available index because we don't have that at this point, so I'm just going to remember this line. Can't bookmark it, that's annoying. 470, I'll remember that. I'm going to look for that spawn projectile again. Or actually throwing state wherever it's created. It is here. So at this point, it should return the X register to say that the player one can shoot in that direction. So we can just call this again, so it's fine for us to call this twice. We need to call that to get the X value of where to throw, which index to throw on. I've got the wrong screen up there. Perfect from bits, cool. Yeah, the color clash is gone, and it makes the sprite go behind, which is nice, or look like it's going behind. It's just not drawing. That's the thing. And it should be the same in every direction as well. Whereas before it would have been flush to the ground on the top and the right, and it would have kind of gone and color clashed a little bit on the down and the left. Oh, well, the other way around, but whatever, you get the kind of idea. The other thing we need to do here, looking at this, move that to there. We need to set the state first, and then we need to do all this stuff. Set frame, just need to make sure. So set frame doesn't rely on anything being kept, so that's fine. Thank you for the follow, Feshbert. Welcome to the stream. So the only thing we need to do is set the player number, and that should be. Did we mark it what it does, or was I stupid and not actually note what it did? Node X current player. So X is either 0 or 1 at this point. One throw index. I need to figure out where it's getting that. And have a look at those. Throw index. Single byte, yeah. So it's 0 or 1 at that point, okay. Zero or 1. X, which is stored in temp, so we can just load that up. What is that? Where's the code I just put? Oh, there it is. Load accumulated with temp. Load by 1. 1 is the projectile type, so really having to think about it. Do you feel a Commodore code is safe with it connected to internet? Yeah, I mean, the ability for somebody to actually do anything malicious with my Commodore code is very, very limited. I can't even think of anything offhand that you could do that could cause problems, but I'm fine with it, to be honest. I actually think from a security kind of research perspective that this is good stuff to know, because I think understanding how low-level code like this works is very fundamental to understanding how to kind of disassemble things like malware and viruses and understand what they're doing. So say a new virus gets released and is attacking computers on the internet and attacking you, and your job as a security researcher is to figure out what it does, then being able to understand low-level code like this is really, really useful. There's probably some weird stuff you could possibly do with In fact, no, there's not. There's really not. I mean, you could probably crash the Commodore, that's about it. Or the emulator. Yeah, that's the other thing, it runs in an emulator. I'm just trying to think if there's any kind of weird values you can set that could cause a problem, but I can't think of any offhand. I mean, most of the demos that you see running do crazy things with the Commodore anyway, and they don't cause a problem. The worst that happens is they crash. So. But no, I'm actually glad. I'm glad that the security researchers do watch this, because I think it is useful as a security research tool. It certainly helped me with the stuff I've been doing as well. BHP virus, quickly out. What's the BHP virus then? What does that do? What's the platform? I assume it's Commodore then, if you're talking about dissecting it. Okay, let's test this out. This hopefully should. I completely forgot what I was doing there. God, my head's not working at all. Oh, we were changing where the projectile spawns. That's right. Hi, Reggae Pirate. Welcome to the stream. Man, I need a new head. Go! That wasn't the desired effect. God, I'm just opening up windows and all sorts. It's... Okay, let's have a look what it's doing here. So let's just put some hard-coded values in first, just to make sure that this is actually a relevant place to put this. I think it should be. Oh no, that's not having it at all, is it? Okay, let's go and have a look at where... Hang on, let's think about this. Let's just get rid of that. Okay, that spawn projectiles is causing an issue. But why is it causing an issue is the question. Why is this a problem here and not in the previous? Okay, so let's go and have a look where else this is being called. Oops. The X's are available index. Jump into this location. And then spawn in the projectile. This should be absolutely fine. I don't understand what would be causing a problem here. Yeah, but the thing, I tried some hard-coded values there as well, so let's go and have a look at that. So I tried some hard-coded values in here. Let's try get a 201. So this should be the fun. I'm just wondering if this leaves the state something weird in the state. Are we bashing anyway? Because there's a lot of registers being used here as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and 3. And this is using 1 and 2 here. I reckon if I change those, these later ones, this is the other problem you get as well. Another good reason to use aliases like this is to put all your 0-page stuff at the beginning of every function. So I know I can look at this function and I go, this function is using these 7 addresses in 0-page, and it calls this function which is using these 2 addresses, so I can immediately see any clashes between the two. Makes it a lot easier to tidy things up. I think that's actually going to work now. I think that's what the problem was. It was coming in here and doing some stuff in here, which meant that when it got back to here and it started using those values again, they were incorrect. Oh, okay. It's not the problem, but it was definitely worth fixing. Let's see what happens when I come in here. Changing the colours of various things. Some projectiles. It doesn't do anything that sneaky. Oh, we need to check this function as well, don't we? Okay, this isn't doing anything. I mean, it's setting this to FF. Probably shouldn't be a problem. I'm going to put a breakpoint in there and just see what value I actually get back from that. Maybe I am getting FF for some reason. Oh, I think I am, and I think I know why. Oh no, it says I'm getting 0. So one other thing, when this function is called, it needs this player variable here. So I actually do need to... Actually, though, I'm not calling it anywhere else. It's still loading player, current player, blah blah blah, storing it in temp. And it sees some other stuff, and it's loading it from temp again. And then it's never used again. Just gonna try setting that there. If anybody can see what's going on, then... Oh, loading... Yeah, on this one, yeah. Well, set to 0, 0 just to... Tell type. What on earth is doing that? It's so bizarre. See, if I cut out that line, it's fine. So let's run it again. Cut out that line. It's obviously something in there that's breaking things. Now it's working. I've got the throw animation working. Yeah, I might try it in the debugger in a second. I just want to see. I'm just going to read through this spawn projectile code, see if I can see anything unusual. So it's just storing some values in temp 4 and temp 5. This is in draw player. It's a whole separate function. It doesn't rely on any other function. I feel like something weird is going on. So let's turn it back on. Let's launch the... Actually, let me put a... so I can find it. Where did I actually put that? Oh, 0 DDE. Okay. In the debugger. Okay, so this is our function here that's being called. So when we get to that function, we're going to start stepping through. It looks like the Vic values are being changed. So let's bring up the Vic screen and see what we see on here as it goes through. So let's move our main guy a little bit. Oh, that's cool. So you can see player 2 has fired because he's using the old system. This is player 1 that's firing, and now he's jumping into this routine here. So we're going to step into that routine. I think that just stepped over it rather than into it. Let's have a look what it's... Did I step over it or did it step into it? What? No, it's broke. It's broken a completely different way. Hang on, let me think about this. All I want to do is spawn a projectile. At this point here, what am I actually doing? I'm just setting some frames. Set frame here, current player. No, instead of setting the frame there, I'm just going to immediately exit. I'm going to immediately exit and see what happens. It's going to break a few things, but we'll know if it's the second half of this function that's causing the problem. In which case we can go and have a look down here and see what's going on. Okay, the animation's pretty good though now. So it's definitely the second half of that function. The state is being destroyed or something. It's relying on something that's not being set properly. Which is fine, that makes it nice and easy to find. So let's put these values back. And that can stay because that's already set. So this is correct now. But when it's done this, it jumps to set frame. Now, is there anything that set frame is relying on? You wouldn't think so, because it's grabbing accumulator and X register from current frame and current player. So it's going to have a look at what they are. Oops, a little bit far. Current frame is 2, current player is temp 1, and none of these functions affect those. So check L1 can shoot, has no effect on those temporary locations. Spawn projectile, I've already changed to temp 4 and temp 5. I don't think it's using anything else in there. Check. Temp 4 and temp 5, so that's weird. It definitely seems to be related to the values being changed in these locations for some reason. Okay. So which one of these could be causing a problem? Could it be this player X? Where's that coming from? And that must also be a lookup somewhere. One and vector 2. No, it's not. There was these ones here, vector 3 and vector 4. Just need more wine. How's everybody's Saturday been so far? Oh, no one else has got ill. I know you can't catch stomach aches over the internet, but seems to have been going round near me, so not the only one who's got it. So no problem, Don. Sleep well. Thank you for joining the stream. And this is the important stuff in life, even if I'm making a right hash of it tonight. Oh god, nothing worse than a cat with fleas. Well, any animal with fleas for that matter. in there. My cats don't go out, and I've got plenty of stuff to play with here, and there's 3 of them. Flea drops are definitely better than the flea collar. Flea collars can give them bad reactions as well. Mind you, so can flea drops. Flea drops are just a stronger version of it, but the thing with the flea collar is they're going to have it on all the time, whereas flea drops will eventually kind of dissipate. But I had a cat that used to chew its collar, and it got really sick through doing its flea collar. But it found a way to like get at a little bit of it and pulling it, and made a bit of a mess. It was not very well because of it. So. Okay, I'm going to try something kind of terrible here, but I'm going to try it anyway. Do we actually have these macros set up already? We do. Alright. I'm going to call these 2 macros just to see if anything weird is going on. Oh, okay. There is something about trying to do it in this loop which is causing a problem. I don't want to just... I don't want to immediately return from this function, because that's not the right way to do it. It wouldn't hurt to keep that frame on for 1 frame longer, so maybe jump into this point here. Set frame, blah blah blah. Oh, hang on, there's a push there. Okay, his push is there, the pull is there. I'm just going to try jumping directly to this location. So I don't actually mind it pausing on 1 extra frame of the handwriter. In fact, it probably looked quite good. No, it's still causing problems. Why you cause problems? I feel like there's something I'm missing. Something really obvious I'm missing. Oh, hang on. See that? Jump to sprite, add sprite. So this one is using 4 and 5. This is using 1, 2 and 3. Add sprite is using temp 1. Only using temp 1 now. But let's move these temp 1. Oh god, this is getting a mess now, but whatever. Let's just move these all along a little bit. There we go. So it's just 0 page clashing. So when you have a system like this where you've got routines calling other routines, you need to make sure that your entire chain of routines are using unique temporary variable spacings of a page. How long does it take to learn ASM? You can learn ASM in a day. Learning how to do it well and how to make games with it is a different matter, but ASM itself is quite simple. There's only like 25 commands or so, and a few variations of them. So it's a much easier thing to learn the whole command set than a modern language, but to learn how to actually use the memory to do the things you want it to do is something that takes a long time. I say a long time, it's not that long, but it does take constant practice. You need to familiarize yourself with a lot of these locations. So I am going to leave that skip frame set, because what that skip frame set is doing is, in this case, what's happening is at the end of the throw, when the last frame with the arm completely outstretched happens, it's saying, okay, we're at the end of the animation, now spawn a projectile. So what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, and also don't set another frame on this frame. So what it's trying to do is set it back to the idle frame. But it's just saying keep the arm out for one extra frame. So it's just going to extend the length of time that happens for. This happens for both players, so we don't need to change anything in this section, but we will need to change in the player 2 control. How did the original developers create the game? Was a game engine? No, they coded from scratch. There wasn't really game engine. I mean, well, I say that there were a lot of games that were made by reusing code from other games, but they weren't game engines in the same way that we know game engines. It was just a case of a programmer going, okay, I've made this shoot 'em up before, so I'm going to strip out my scrolling code, my shooting code. I'm going to make another game using that. They rarely would have an engine, so to speak. So all we need to do is the same thing in here, just strip out that player can shoot. Sorry, the bit after player can shoot. Here, so this bit here we need to get rid of. Feels pretty good. Actually, there is a little bit of a delay when it throws, but it actually doesn't feel that bad. It feels kind of natural. I go back, I take back what I was saying before, although it's what I was saying before about the instant response thing is not my guidelines. It's guidelines from various people in the animation community when it comes to games. I disagree with them in this case. I think that feels alright. Can those guys on... Oh, Steps already on it. Yeah, if you can test it if you're on Flu Bits and just let me know how that feels. It feels pretty good in my eyes. The delay adds a kind of... It adds that anticipation. The anticipation that they say you shouldn't have actually works really well. Yeah. The book that came with the computer showed us how to use basic computers. The dev got too sick of how to learn basic ones. Let's learn basic. Also, this still has a lot of helpers. Yeah, so Kickassembler has a lot of kind of modern IDE helpers that you wouldn't have had back then. They would have had some things similar, but maybe not to the extent that we have nowadays. I mean, one of the things I remember coding assembly back in the day, and basic for that matter, was just simple things like not having undo, not having copy paste, not having undo. That made life really difficult. You know, well, I say it made life difficult. At the time, you didn't realise because that's all you knew. But now, once you've used an IDE like this for a few years, going back to coding directly on a Commodore is incredibly difficult because you can't undo. When you press fire, there are 5 frames before the ball appears. Can you? Okay, 3. Yeah, we can try that. But yeah, it was difficult. And the thing with basic was that I think Commodore took the word basic and went, right, we need to make this really basic. And they gave you the shittest version of Microsoft Basic that they could get their hands on, or get a license for, or whatever it was, and that they did. And so to do things like playing sounds or displaying sprites or changing the colour of the border or the background or the colour of the text, you had to do by poking into memory. And so what happened is once you'd done 2 or 3 basic programs, you realised you couldn't do anything without directly kind of manipulating the memory anyway in Commodore. So it was kind of a very natural step to go, well, if I'm going to have to manipulate memory because the commands aren't there, why don't I just write an assembly language? And then you get your hands on a programmer's reference manual, program's reference guide or whatever it was called, and there's just no looking back once you get that. So I had that, and I had oh god, what was it called? Dr. Watson assembly instructor. I didn't have the Dr. Watson compiler, but I had a Dr. Watson book which explained a lot of the routines in it. You've seen the codes in yeah. Basic was awful on the Commodore, really bad. I think if you ask many of the Commodore programmers, a lot of the reason that they first dabbled with assembly was because of the kind of lack of ability of Commodore Basic. Okay, let's find where that was happening again. Completely lost where I was now. That's not that one. This is the one. Okay. At the moment we're throwing it at the end of the frame. So we could set it at a different point instead. So let's have a look how this is actually working. So not throwing, we jump to not throwing, otherwise we jump to here. If we get rid of the skip frame, we move this down to here. Want this value here. So now what we're doing, we're checking if the index, the throw index has reached 3. If it hasn't, then we just go and set the frame, otherwise we do the projectile throw. I need to go and check what in this table, what the throw animation is. Throw, there we go. Oh, so the throw animation is quite long. Let's try it on 3. We can always tweak this value. There are a few people out there that use voice-controlled IDEs. They've got motor problems or other problems, and they use voice-controlled IDEs. I mean, I've seen people using it, and it doesn't look easy. But I guess if you learn the tricks, then do it. If necessary, you could change the actual throw animation itself. Yeah, so I've got the throw animation set out. So let's have a look. So hi Kustuin. So this is the throw animation. It's just doing 3 of each frame. So we could reduce this to 2 of each frame. And extend the arm for a bit longer. Like so. We do the same on the throw right as well. They're not working. Okay, I'm going to take a short break. Steps, if you could give that a quick try, just let me know what you think the animation. So this player throw left and player throw right in tables is the actual animation. The animation is 11 frames long, or 12 frames long, sorry, and it's doing a lot of kind of repeated frames. Just let me know if you think it needs to be a bit later that the ball is released, if the animation needs to be changed in any way. And I'm going to take a short break. Alright, be right back, guys. Alright, I'm back. More. Okay, that's bad. Yeah. Okay, I'm quite pleased with that. I'm going to try in a few locations. I'm going to check over MSB side of the screen. It's always good to check. Seems to be working fine. Make the long arm extend come quicker. Yeah, let's try that. Let's change this. So the actual animation is very quick, and then it holds the arm out for quite long. Oh yeah, that actually feels a lot better. And player 2. Yeah, that's looking quite good. Remember what you think of that, Steps? And anyone else on Flea Bits? Okay, let's try that. Yeah, this is the beauty of using these kind of table ends. Because we're actually using a calculation to work out the length of the table, tables very easily drop a frame off the end. Go. Can even bring it back as well, like that. Might not, but we'll try it anyway. No, that doesn't work. I prefer. Okay, go on, Steps. Perfectly happy to try all these things. It's collaborative after all. And then I think we'll move on to making the animation work. Just close up some of the space. Oh. It's definitely not going to be a 5 AM job tonight. Oh, that's what I did. Oh, let's try it with just one frame. I'll come back in slowly. Try doing that. Yeah, I need to change both tables. Put it in slow-mo so we can see what's going on. Oops. I'll add in a few more frames to the end. I'll let let you know in a second, Steps. Just going to try this one out now. I feel like one of the frames is kind of off, so have a look at what's going on here. So this is our throw animation, and that's throw animation. That's the walk animation. Oh, that is. So it's like another. We got 4 frames in. I feel like these frames are the wrong way around. I feel like they should be like, put that in there and slow it right down. I feel like those two should be swapped around. Those two like that. Try exporting that. It's actually starting to look a bit more natural. Yeah, I like that. So let me commit that to GitHub, because I know those following on Flubits can't get the data properly if you're not. Also, okay, so what have I done here? I've stopped soft sprites. Okay, so if you pull the latest data, give that a try. Hopefully that would be a lot better. Oh, thank you for the raid, Jury. Welcome to the stream and everyone that's come along with him. What have you been doing tonight? Trying to fix a stomachache with wine at the moment, which I'm not sure it's working. Not going to stop me getting the bottle. We're currently just adding our animations, or tweaking our animations for our player throw. Seems to be going quite well so far, so... I keep forgetting I've got the Shallow Shimmer as well, so the new Shallow Shimmer emote has been added. Quite pleased with. It's been a long time to actually sort these out, but finally they've done it. So for those who've joined with Air Jury, what we're doing is we're making a C64 game completely on stream. I say completely on stream, I did do some optimization a week or two ago. but the majority of code, I'd say 99% of the code, is done on screen, and it's a collaborative effort, so everything is voted for democratically, which is working quite well so far. I was kind of fully expecting this to be a game full of penises and all sorts of weird things, but it's actually turning out to be a pretty decent game so far, so there's still a lot to do, but we're getting there. Anyway, I think that animation feels kind of right now. I think those 2 frames were just the wrong way around. For some reason, his arm was going from kind of... It was just going the wrong way. Whereas now he's moving backwards and he's following it all the way through, which is... yeah. Hopefully that doesn't happen. In fact, I'm gonna avoid putting anything like that in. So if anybody tries to give me that stuff, it's just gonna get ignored. So there are some other frames that we need to add. So this chunk of frames need to duplicate for each size of the character. So at the moment we're using 24 frames, which means for all the animations, for all 3 sizes, there'll be 72 frames, which is not that bad really. If you look at our asset, which does have a list somewhere, I believe, of the sprites. We've got 190 or so sprites that we can drop in. 187, I think that is. 76. No, 100 and... God, I can't even add up. 191 sprites. So we've still got 100 sprites left to do. Is it normal that Projectiles still disappears when launched to the left? What do you mean? It's some C64 based in 602 ASM code and played art on. Archon is that's the chess looking kind of game, isn't it? I struggled a lot with that game. Okay, I'm seeing a bit of a glitch down in the bottom corner here. Oops. Could be due to the location. Due to it not being cleared off screen quick enough, but that's fine, we can get around this at some point. One player doesn't have the limit to try and the last one disappears. But this guy definitely has a limit. Oh yeah, this... okay. So we've got a bug here. This guy can only throw 1 projectile at a time. Tries to throw a second one, it gets replaced. Okay, so there seems to be a bug in this. Okay, so let's have a look at that. That's my little... Here we go. So we're handling this by we're checking if we can throw, and if we can throw, we're returning an index in here. So we're checking first projectile and the second projectile. First projectile is... Oh, you know what? I know what it is. I know what it is. Okay, so it's because when we moved that code, where is it? When we move this code here, and we do this check, we check if player 1 can shoot only. That's the only one we check. We don't check player 2, whereas what we should actually be doing is checking this value here. So we will compare x to 0, text not equal jump to check player 2, and this will be, even though we're not going to use this label, I'm going to put it in anyway. And we just need to jump, so we just need to make sure that we use the correct player 1 or player 2 check here. And I don't want to do a jump here, so the reason why I don't want to do a jump, right, is if I do this, this is going to take 6 cycles. I know 6 cycles doesn't seem like a lot, but if you keep doing this everywhere, you're going to run into problems. So instead what I'm going to do, I know that this is going to return a value between 0 and 4. They're all positive values, so I'm just going to do a branch of plus. And the difference is this will only take 3 cycles, so this is using half the number of cycles and 1 less byte as well. This takes 2 bytes, whereas a jump takes 3 bytes, so it's always better to use a branch if you can get away with it instead of a jump. Thank you for that. Yeah, I wouldn't have spotted that. Well, I would as soon as I tried to build it, but now I've done it without having to build it. Okay, so let's check that. So player 1's fine, can throw. Player 2. There we go. We're back to normal again. Cool. Okay, so the next thing I want to try is putting some animations into these characters. So the normal way you would do this with a character anyway is to just either update the data in the font every frame, or to update the character that's been drawn to the screen every frame. Now, because we're kind of already doing both of these as part of the soft sprite, we can't do that in the normal way. But what we can do is when we create the sprite, so in this location here where we create the sprite blip table, what we're doing is we're saying, okay, create a table. But let me show you in the debugger, it makes it easier to see what's going on. Why is that not loading? You've got Vice open it, you won't even open the debugger, it's very annoying. So, with the game loaded into memory, what's happened is, in somewhere around here, whoops, no, that wasn't it. Is it this one? I feel like it's that one. It looks kind of like it. Yeah, it is this. It just looks weird because of it's looking at multicolor mode. So if this was a character set, if you were looking at this as characters, you would see that this is the ball being animated through columns, moving across in different ways. And so we're using 1 kilobyte of memory to store that ball in each of the different positions that it could be in. So what we need to do, I want to make this change. So we're just gonna animate a green line through. Let's make it a black line so it's easier to see, just for the purposes of the animation. This is definitely a placeholder. This is going to change. So as I said, what we're going to do is for every X position, we're going to use a different sprite. We're still going to use the same one vertically. That's not going to change. And because the projectiles are always going to be moving at a kind of relatively same speed, left and right all the time, it's easy for us to animate this through by changing that. So we're gonna export these four 4 sprites. So I'm going to do that now. I'm going to save this project. I'm going to export it, and I'm going to save it to GitHub so you guys can pull that latest version as well. Export character set. Charles, yep. Charles. God, my head really can't think at all. Fixed projectile. Player to bug. Updated projectile. I must have missed something in chat there. Oh, there we go. I don't know any assembly program, but just I'm curious. He's making it. It's not. It's about the same to me. Very similar. Yeah, exactly. Same commands exactly. There's just different kind of hardware limitations. So, for instance, on the Commodore you get 8 hardware sprites and only 8, and you can only have 8 per scan line as well. But they're a lot bigger. They're 24 pixels by 21, whereas on the NES I think they're 8 by 8, but you have 64, something like that. But you can only have 8 per scan line as well on the NES. So. How was sprites drawn in old time? People would write their own sprite editors on graph paper. Yep. So when the first sprites I did were drawn on graph paper. Drawn on graph paper, the binary values worked out. So in a row of 24 pixels, you would split it into 3 groups of 8. You'd work out the binary for each one of those, write them down, and write some data statements. Then I got an action replay cartridge, and I started using Schumel Construction Kit because I had a really nice sprite editor in. I used that sprite editor, and then I used to save them out onto tape and load them from there. The slow process. It's a lot better now with things like SpritePad. It's a hell of a lot easier. Okay, so with that in mind, so what we want to do is when we create that sprite, we want to pass some additional information into here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another parameter that we're going to pass in, which is the number of frames. There'll be consecutive frames, so by default we would want to pass 1 in, so that would give us the normal behavior, but we're going to pass in 4, and what that will do is it will loop a value every column that it does, every X position that it moves across, every column of kind of animations, it will increment a value, and if it's this value, then it will reset back to 1 again. Reset back to 0 even. So we'll use this value as a kind of the maximum number of frames before resetting back to the beginning. So we need to go and have a look at this function here. Softsprites create split table. So this probably looks more confusing than it really is. It's certainly going to be harder for me to remember what the hell's going on here, but I'll do my best anyway. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create another lookup to 0 page, another alias to 0 page. I'm going to call it temp. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to store our new parameter here in temp. In fact, I'm not going to call it temp. I'm going to call it frame count. Go. Okay, so this is getting the font data to look up into vector 5. So this is the font data. So this is what's actually taking this value and looking up in here. So this is gonna have to be recalled at some point. We'll get to that in a minute. So let's find out where the columns and rows are accessed. So we need to draw, I think, 16 iterations of the sprite. Let's do some calculations. So there are 8 bytes in a character. We need to do 16, no, not 16, sorry, 8 different positions over 2 characters. Is that right? It's 2 characters, no, over 4 characters. We've got a whole block of 4, so that's 8 times 32, 256. And then there are 4 different X positions, 1024, so that's correct. So we're looking for a counter of 8 and a counter of 4. This is our counter of 8, so this is probably rows. Should be a counter of 4 somewhere, although it's probably increasing by 2, which is that one there. There we go. So this is probably columns. Full loop, let's have a look. Yep, okay, so get the font lookup, it's put into here. It's stored in these self-mod locations, which are down here somewhere. Here. Lookup count. Blit lookup is the reference to the blit table, so sprite 1 would be the first index, so this can stay the same, this doesn't need to change. I'm going to suggest that we move this stuff down here. Let me store the accumulator in current character, which we'll put here. So this blit lookup doesn't matter. This is only needs to be set once. This is our index into the blit. Can you pass 4 frames and clear the preceding 1 to 3? That's the copy. Pass 4 frames. Pass. It's being deliberately drawn in columns first. I have to draw 8 frames down. I have to go down, and there's a reason for that with the optimization of the blitting and masking. So I don't think I could do that. So I need to get the current character. Oops. Do this. So I just want to test that this is working, just to make sure that this hasn't broken anything by refactoring. So there does seem to be a little oh no, that's the animation, that's fine. It's just the first frame of the animation. Okay, so this hasn't broken anything. The other thing I need to do is create, actually that needs to be temp 5 and current frame, like that. So I need to load 0 current frame. Right, there we go. So I need to load the current character. I need to add the current frame, and then go and get the font lookup, which is what it's doing here. That's fine. Okay. And then at the bottom, before it jumps back, before it does the repeat, offset by 32 bytes. Hang on. We'll offset 32, is that right? 8. Full loop, hang on. Well, let's try this. If it's wrong, I can always change it. So what I want to do is load. I could probably do this increment. Actually, it's probably better if I use increment. Am I using X, Y anywhere? No. Do it with Y. What I'm doing here is I'm just incrementing our current frame until it reaches the frame count. When it reaches the frame count, resetting it to 0 again. Should be enough for this to work, so let's try that out. Yes, it's assembly, Puka. Okay, let's run that in slow-mo. Thank you for the follow, Puka. Let's try slowing it down a little bit. Okay, it seems to be using the Y speed as the animation decider, which is not good. We need to make it use the X speed. So it's actually building the X first, then building the Y, which is a bit weird. But okay, this is kind of correct. So I believe what we need to do, this probably isn't columns. Okay, so updates the offsets top to bottom, left to right. Okay, 32 total. Yes. Oh, this was updating it every frame. Okay. So this is what's actually updating the offset, so we need to do it in here. So it wasn't this bit at all. So this was rows, this is columns. So it's going to go through 8 rows. It's increasing by 1 because it's just a single pixel height all the way down. And then when it's done all 8 rows, if it's finished all 8 rows, it's going to jump to, call it skip, because we've already got one in the middle here. Make sure there's no other skip. No, okay. So if it hasn't finished doing the rows, it will just jump here and it will just store it and repeat again. However, if it has finished the rows, it will update to the next frame. Update the X column as well. If the X column is finished, then it will exit and it's finished making it. Otherwise, it will store it and it will repeat again. So this should be fine now. This was a really good suggestion. I don't know who it was. If you are watching now and it was your suggestion on YouTube, please let me know. I'd like to put a name to the suggestion because it's very good. Yeah, there we go. When you do the PDF, so you go back and watch the episode, or just work from the code? No, I work. So I have a separate folder where I've followed through, because I did the first 2 or 3 PDFs fairly in sync with what I'm doing. But as I've kind of taken on a lot more recently, it's got a lot harder to keep up with it, and the code's getting a bit more complicated. So what I did from that point on was I took a snapshot from GitHub for PDF 4, I think it was, and then I work on that PDF, looking at the code, the target code, the code I've got now, with the code at that point in time, and just work through adding the feature that I want to add. So I actually have 2 projects. I have 2 of these projects. I have the project that's in line with the PDF, and I have this project as well. Yeah, it's been a little bit slower to do it than I would have liked. I did originally intend on doing one PDF per week, but it turns out that actually the PDFs take a lot longer to do than the stream. There's something to be said for just kind of coding and talking, as opposed to actually writing and describing everything. But, you know, along with like the screenshots and the little diagrams and stuff that I like to add in there to add some detail to it. So it's probably going to be more like one a month. But you know, I think it's going to be worth it in the end. I think it's better to get it right than to rush it and have something that's not that useful. I think it will, as we approach the end of this, it will speed up a little bit because we'll get into a kind of just polish mode, and at that point it will really will just be going over the same pieces of code. So do you plan to release the code in the state it must be in sync with the PDF? So what I'm trying to do is in the PDFs is supply a link to GitHub that has a point in time that has the correct assets and things you will need to complete the PDF. If you're following without the stream and you're doing this from scratch, you'll have a link to that. So the YouTube suggestion was something I'm thinking of doing. I'm still undecided whether or not to do it or not, because I'm struggling with a few things. One, I'm not really a YouTuber, so for me writing, I mean it comes down to writing a script, basically writing a script, recording that, and then making it into a nice video, and that for me that's quite a difficult thing to do. So I mean, if anybody wants to help me out with that, I'd be definitely I could definitely take on any kind of help with that. But the idea is that I want to create some kind of 15-20 minute long, I call them bite size, but BYTE size, just because it's kind of slightly witty, if probably used a million times before name. Bite-sized videos, and they're basically focused on small 20-minute snippets of information around coding for the 64. So the very first one, which I've kind of half written a script for, is about what is assembly language, like why does the C64 use assembly language, what is it, how does a computer use it, and how does it apply to the Commodore 64. You know, what is an opcode, what is an operand. I don't go into detail about assembly language itself, but it's just kind of explaining how a computer runs assembly language and why it helps to understand how it runs it. I'm still unsure whether that's going to happen or not. I kind of want it to. There's been some really good suggestions on my Patreon account, which, by the way, if you haven't signed up for it, if you want to join my Patreon and support, in return you get PDF write-ups of the stream, and you get the ability to kind of suggest stuff for the dissect streams on Thursday, and potentially these YouTube videos. But yeah, there's been some really good suggestions on there, and some of the topics are the sort of things that we wouldn't cover directly in the game. For instance, using bitmap mode, what the different Vic modes do, some kind of in-depth details of memory management and banking. Yeah, exactly. I mean, anything like that will be the sort of thing that I want to cover. The problem is finding the time for it at the moment. I was kind of thinking it would be, I kind of naively thought I could sit in front of my camera for 20 minutes with some rough notes and just spool off 20 minutes of information. But then I realised that's not really going to give you very much. That's just going to be like watching a very condensed version of one of my streams with not a lot of context. So I realised quickly that I needed to write a script to get the information across properly, and then I realised that actually me just reading that into a camera is not gonna work. It kind of needs it needs more. It needs like a collage of images and videos and things like that. So it needs a bit of kind of video production skills that I simply don't have. So I've been trying to learn a little bit of things like After Effects and Shotcut and stuff, just to get an idea of how to do things. But yeah, it's actually a lot more work than I thought it was going to be. So it's not a canned idea at the moment. I still want to do it, but I've got a lot of projects on at the moment. I mean, as well as this, I've got .cosmos to do. I've got some other slightly more secretive projects that I'm working on. But yeah, it's keeping me very busy, plus work as well. I mean, work didn't help today with 4-hour kind of support requests, so it turned out to be somebody else's problems as well. Yeah, that's what I was thinking with the videos. I was thinking of getting, as I've been writing the script for the first one, I've been kind of writing in brackets next to each kind of line what would be displayed on the screen, and they would just mostly be just static images and tables and diagrams and things. But even that, because I don't know how to do that, so I'm kind of, I think I need a couple of months of playing around with video editing software and stuff before I can do it. And in that time, I can probably write the scripts for 6 or 7 different things. So yeah. So I mean, one option I was thinking of doing was just using PowerPoint or Google Slides and just doing something in that, because that's something I can use, because that's something I have to use for work, it doesn't have to have a lot, but I can just do something like that with a 20-minute voiceover. But I kind of wanted it to be a bit more than that. I wanted it to be something people would, not just a long list of tutorials. It's something I'm going to think about anyway over the next couple of weeks, and I'm open to any help that anyone's willing to give as well. Particularly video editing skills, After Effects and video editing. Because the other thing I want to do as well is create some kind of nice intro as well, and I don't have any skills whatsoever for doing that. I mean, as nice as my my kind of shoddy demo coding can look at times, I don't think it's suitable for a video intro. So okay, cool. Those animations seem to be working. So we've got 4-frame animation working perfectly there. Let's just give that a quick test with the 2-frame animation, just to see if I drop it down to 2, does it only show 2? Yeah, I completely, I have a lot of respect now for those kind of YouTubers that do 2 or 3 videos a week on their own as well. Small YouTubers, not massive YouTubers. Yeah, that seems to be working fine. And they manage to pump out 2 or 3 videos a week that have quite high production values as well. I have a lot of respect for that. I definitely can't do that. But yeah, I mean, hopefully in the future I'll get a bit more time to do these things, and I can kind of sort that out. Tell us about your secretive projects. No. I think there's one project I'm kind of playing around with a little bit at the moment. That there will probably be some news. There will probably be some news on that sometime relatively soon. You do? I've got all the... They should all be there. Full animation not working right here. So I've just changed it down to 2. What do you mean the ball animation isn't working right? Because I've just... Everything should be committed. It looks like it's committed here anyway. Yeah, that was pushed. Yeah, give it another pull, maybe something. I kind of want to try something. I just looking at the ball, it's just made me want to try something slightly different with the animation. So I'm going to leave this bit in the middle, I am going to instead make it go around. Oops. But I'm going to push the characters again in a minute anyway. Should be a little bit more symmetrical this time. I see it happening too quickly, but the point is not to make an amazing animation. The point here is just to show that it can be done. It means we can actually start adding animations into this. And again, the animations shouldn't be anything too extravagant anyway. They should just be something to add a little bit of variation. Well, there's a few ways this could be done and look better in it. Oops, come to the wrong screen. Alright, I'm going to push those changes as well. Split table creation. Okay, right, what should we do next? Let's have a look. So we've got our little dude throwing things around. They're animating a little bit, which is good. Row animation's feeling really nice actually. I'm glad we tweaked that. That was a really good change. Yeah, I need some more drink. I'm really struggling with it tonight. I mean, I'm usually on my second bottle by now, right? Only just getting to the end of the first one. I'm really struggling with it. Okay. We're kind of getting to the point now where we need something to shoot at, but I think it's probably a little bit too late to start working on anything too in depth. So let's have a think about what we can tweak with what we've got so far. I think on the next stream we'll start looking at enemies, I think. Bounce the projectiles. No, because the projectiles are going to absorb into the floor. That's something we can do actually. We can have them change the colour of the floor. So the idea is these projectiles will soak into the floor, and when they soak into the floor they will leave behind whatever colour they were on the floor. And then those colours will have different attributes, effects. So for instance, the three that we talked about were a bounce effect. So say the ground was purple, for instance, any enemies that walked over it would act like a spring and would fire them up. The same with each other as well, like you'd be able to, do that. Like that. Create a little bounce and then he'd shoot up into the air a little bit. There'd be a slow, so it might turn green, for instance. If it turns green and you walk on it, you'll walk at half your speed or something. And then there would be the freeze effect, so blue, for instance, should be once a second. If you're walking on that, you would freeze for a second. Hi Florislawa, welcome to the stream. What's your new name? Not seen you before. Welcome to the stream. Yeah, this is. I mean, I've said this before, and I think it pays a lot to spend some time getting things looking right. I mean, all we've done here is adding an animation in. We've made it so that the sprite doesn't color clash with the floor, and kind of blends better into. I mean, it would have worked before, and you could have released the game as it was before, and it probably would have worked almost okay, but it just wouldn't have looked polished. And I think it's that extra little bit of polish that adds to the game. So yeah, sounds and animations as well, so I'm kind of looking forward to adding some sound into this at some point. But we haven't quite got there yet, but maybe that's a good point. If you guys, any of you guys watching the stream are good with the SID chip or sound in general, and want to contribute to the stream, please feel free to drop something into my Discord. There's an asset share room in there. You can contribute sounds or sound effects, or even just simple ideas. If you've got like a melody that you think would really suit this game, but you don't know how to do it in the SID, if you can just kind of pop a link to the melody in the stream, we can find somebody who can turn it into a SID tune. Thanks for the follow, Captain Pixel. Welcome to the stream. Likewise with graphics as well. If you've got an idea for graphics but you don't quite know how to do it, but you can draw something on paper, feel free to drop a link in the Discord channel and we'll try and get it in. Music wise for this, we're looking for something kind of sickly sweet, kind of like I keep going to these references, but they have the perfect songs. Bubble Bobble, Rainbow Islands, Parasol Stars, the Bubble Bobble trilogy. All of those games have incredibly addictive, slightly annoying tunes that just repeat, but are so perfect for this kind of game. They've got a kind of happy, sickly sweet kind of feel to them, and that's what we want for this, something kind of quite happy and jolly. And if it can be done in 2 channels, then even better, because then we can have sound effects as well. I mean, we can have sound effects if we do it in 3, but it's easier if we use 2. Graphically, I think we're pretty alright for graphics now. I think Stoker was doing the I think it was Stoker. I can't remember. I think it was Stoker who did these character graphics, these sprite graphics. So I think he's gonna continue those, because we've got 2 more sizes of the character sprite to do. I think he's already done the walk animations for the 2. He just needs to do the throw and the eat animations for those. We're looking for enemy sprites as well. I think Foray did a couple. I think we've got some gummy bears in there. The enemy sprites should kind of fit the candy theme. We've kind of decided this is a candy themed game, so it's about these 2 greedy kids basically looking to eat all the sweets. They've gone to Candyland and they want to eat all the candy monsters. So the monsters should be a lot on a candy kind of theme. And level backgrounds, we're pretty alright with level backgrounds. I mean, we need to elaborate on this a little bit. And there's quite a lot of space still in the character set to do stuff. So we're not too bad. We're only going to have 1 character set. We are going to try and get this down to 16k. Needs to be a SID file, and no, it can be anywhere it wants to be. I mean, I think that is probably the best location for it. I'll show you why it's the best location for it. So if I try and load, let's change the memory setup slightly here. So let's, instead of setting bank 3, we'll set bank 0, and instead of loading our assets into this location here, player sprites, we'll load them into here and here, and then we'll set the screen RAM as there, sprite pointers. Okay, so we're doing exactly the same as we were doing before, but now we've moved everything into Vic Bank 1. Why is that not working? Oh, because we've got code in different places now. Move that to... Alright, forget that. I'll explain why it's different. rather than mess around with it too much. So when you use the VIC chip, there are certain locations in memory where the VIC will only ever see a special type of ROM, character ROM basically. So when you see a Commodore 64, here's something there. When you see the Commodore 64, this font has to be stored somewhere in memory, and it's stored at this location and this location, 1000 and 9000. Now it's stored in ROM at those locations. So in the same way that we've got kernel at E000 to FFF, we also get basic A000 to BFFF. There is character ROM at 1FFFF and 1000 to 1FFFF, and 9000 to 9FFF. And in most cases you won't see that, so if you try and read those values you won't see that unless you say, if you check in the memory map you can see how you can turn that on. So you can see here char ROM visible. Well, actually it's visible at these locations, but they're okay. So that's how you would read the char ROM, but with the VIC chip will read it from 1000 and 9000, and it will always read it from one, no matter what you put in those locations. The VIC chip will always see that there. So if you put a character set at 1000, then you will only see the actual Commodore font. You won't see the font you've created, you will only see the Commodore font. Same with sprites. If you put sprites at that location, instead of seeing the sprites that you put, you will see the Commodore character ROM displayed as if it was sprites. And so it's a bad idea to use bank 0 and bank 2, which are the two VIC banks that have character ROM in them, as VIC banks. So it's always good to use either bank 1 or bank 3. I tend to use bank 3 because bank 3 has the IO ROM in, so it has the stuff at D00, so like the background color, the sprite data, things like that. If you put sprites there, the VIC will always see the sprites. It will never see the ROM that's there. It will never see, well, not ROM there, it will never see the IO RAM. So I always like to use this area because I can put sprites there, and then I don't have to care about banking that in or out, and I've got that 4K of memory that the IO RAM takes up, but used by sprites. And then all you have to do is bank out the kernel, and you've got E00 to FFF, which you can use except for 10 characters at the end, or 8 characters at the end, 8 bytes at the end for like one character. So that's a little bit about why you put music in 100, because if you put music there, then it doesn't matter. You're not trying to put VIC stuff there. The VIC doesn't care what's in that location because it's not reading it. So you will tend to see music at 1000, 9000. Some people like to put it at C000. I'm not sure why, but they do. But I like it at 1000. So yeah, if you're producing music, 1000's probably the best place, but it doesn't really matter too much. We were a 16K program, so it's not like we're not gonna run out of room and need to be that fussy about it. Sounds like you need to know a lot to do very little on the Commodore. No, you don't need to know a lot to do stuff on the Commodore. It's just that the moment you start trying to do a lot, then you will run into lots of different kind of problems. And one of the common problems you'll get when you first start doing coding is in assembly on the 64 is if you try and put graphics in those locations, you'll be like, why are my graphics not showing? Like the most common problem you get is not really character sets or sprites, but if you put a bitmap. So bitmaps take up 8K of memory, so there's only actually 16 locations in 8 locations in memory where a bitmap can be, and 2 of those cross over character ROM areas. So that means you've got a 1 in 4 chance of your bitmap having a band half of the screen incorrect. And so that's when I first came across it anyway, and I'm pretty sure that's where most people will come across it. You'll be trying to draw a bitmap and you're like, why am I only seeing half of my bitmap? Why does the other half of the bitmap look like garbage? Or even worse, why does it look like character? Why does it look like well, no, it would look like garbage actually. You wouldn't see the font at all. Okay, good night, Amok. Thank you for coming along. Does music compress well, or does it depend on the type of music? To be fair, no, it doesn't compress well, usually because it's already in a format that's quite compressed. It doesn't compress that well, no. Hi, Harry Longbone. No spirits tonight. I've not been well this week. I've had a really bad stomach this week, so I've been kind of avoiding the heavy stuff. I'm working my way slowly through this bottle, which I'm almost finished with. Right, I'm going to go and have a quick break for 5 minutes, and then when I come back, what should we do? We can take a look at trying to colour the floor, maybe. Actually, no, I think I kind of want to wait a little bit for that. I want to get the enemies in before I do that, so have a think what we can do next. Maybe we can polish something a little bit more in the game. I'm not sure. I'm going to take a break for 5 minutes, and then when I come back we'll have a figure out what we can do. So, be right back. Alright, I'm back. Let's have a think. What can we do? Don't have the sprites set up to do our players getting bigger, so that's probably not... I'm just thinking if there's anything we can polish. It's feeling pretty solid now, actually. Oh yeah, if you've got some bugs, that'd be good. So, stand in this hole. Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. So. Oh, okay. Okay, that's a cool one. So what's happening here is our collision routine is looking in this area. What we ideally need to do is make our collision routine not check anything past this location. So in the case where we're at this edge of the screen here, it's probably going to be similar if we try and move over to the edges as well. So let's try that. See, we fall through at that point because it gets confused. Okay, so we've got a couple of bugs to look at there. I think the first thing we should answer the question: do we want our player to be able to walk off the edge of the screen? Do we want him to be able to come off this edge and appear back here again? If that's the case, then we need to write a routine to do that. At the moment, the edges of the screen just start grabbing weird areas of memory to do. Funny actually. And then the other question, well, this isn't really a question, but I think we should be able to drop off the bottom and appear on the top again. I think that's a nice feature to be able to do, and it's definitely very common in these Bubble Bobble games. Actually, screen edges usually are blocked in these games, so let's go down the route of blocking the edges and changing this routine. But let's fix this bit first. So we need to make it so if we get to this point here, we just treat anything past here as non-colliding, and actually make the character appear up here a lot quicker than he is doing at the moment. So let's start by looking at our player collision routine. Let's see, it's got to be something in here collision related. Get collisions, there we go. So what we're doing, we're getting the collision. This is player 1, player 2. So let's fix it for player 1 first, then we can have a look at player 2. So what's this other one? You can stand up there. Yeah, that's a screen edge thing, I think, that one. So this post image is just full of kind of like semi-graphic images. So I'm glad that went up to that monitor. So get collision point. This is what's going to get our position on the screen, and then we get the character of that position. So our get collision point is what we're interested in. And this is the same for player 1 and player 2. So get collision point should return player X and a player Y in Y. So I think with the player Y it's as simple as comparing if we're at a certain value. So let's have a look at this height of the screen. So the height is 11 high. So the last character we should be checking is... Oh, thank you for the follow, Christ STC. Welcome to the stream. So it starts at 0, goes all the way down to 21 here. So anything above 21 should cap at 21. So if we compare the Y to 16, which is 21. 15, which is 21 in hexadecimal. If it's less than that, actually 16. If it's less than that, do nothing. If it's 16 or higher, sorry, that should be enough to fix our bottom of the screen glitch. I wouldn't say they're indecent. They're just they're definitely targeted at men. Let's put it that way. Thanks for the host, Hitch. Welcome to the stream if you just joined. I know you do like to lurk now and again. Welcome. Yeah, there we go. We're not. And now, no matter what I do there, it's basically what it's doing is it's extending this bottom row all the way down. So it's the equivalent of this being just copied. This last row of characters is being copied all the way down here now. So no matter what I do, I can't even go into that edge because there's basically a wall. This wall is all the way down like this. But I can go across like this. But I can't go down. You've been headshotting. What have you been playing, Hitch? I've been playing a bit of Borderlands 3 at the moment. I really like it, to be honest. I'm guessing you've been playing Insurgency, Sandstorm. Yeah, thought so. Yeah, I'm enjoying Borderlands 3 actually, it's quite good. I wasn't a big fan of the second one. I liked the first one to an extent, but it kind of got boring after a while. The third one's really good fun. It could perform a little bit better. I mean, I've got a kind of a beast of a computer and I struggle to run it in 4K. Right, last glass of wine. 5 minutes. Quite a big glass, so it's going to last me a while. Yeah, I liked the first. It kind of got boring after a bit. It got very repetitive. But the third one seems really nice. It's nice and varied. It's good fun. I'm really enjoying it. Just taking my time with it. I'm not trying to play it with friends or anything. Just soloing along in it, and it's quite good fun. I'm enjoying it. Okay, so that fixes our issue there. Now the other question is, do we want the player to drop off all the way down the screen like that? I think that's probably alright actually. It doesn't look too bad. Kind of be nice in kind of going in front of the whatever we have here, some kind of enemy bar counter or something. Or maybe we can do that actually. Maybe we can start looking at creating a state, like a progress bar here. I guess it's something could be useful for people to know how to do. Have I ever done a progress bar? I must have done one at some point. I think I've done one in assembly. No, I don't think I have actually. So that could be an interesting next challenge to do. Okay, so the other thing we need to do is block the character from going off the edge of the screen there. To the moment they don't. Or some sound effects. Yeah, we could do. Although again, that kind of needs us to set up some sound effects in Goat Tracker. I don't really want to go down the route of creating a sound effect player. I think that's probably a bit overkill, especially when something like Goat Tracker has sound effects built in. I mean, we can do it in a future kind of episode and maybe as a second game or something, but I think for the first game it might be a little bit too much to add that in. Alright, I'm gonna block the player from going off that edge of the screen, so we need our player move routine, so let's have a look in our game link where we do that. So we've got player control, so it's going to be in there, right? Player control. Okay, I did want to refactor this at some point so it's one single routine for both, but anyway, so let's start with the left movement. But this is what's doing our subtraction of player position. So all we need to do is add a check here, check screen edge, and to do that we're going to I've got to remember which one it is. I think it's actually +1. I'll go and have a check at the top. Yeah, so it's this one that we're interested in. So if we're at the screen edge, fractional we don't care about, but the screen edge will be, so fractional can be anything. The screen edge will be whatever we take away from the collision. So I'm going to say it's 1/8 for now. We can always adjust that, and 0, 0. So we're looking for it being less than these two. If it's anything less than these, we need to clamp it to these and reset this value as well. Yeah, the 64 had quite a lot of weird games for it. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is check the MSB. If the MSB is not set, then we're not at the edge. Sorry, if it is set, then we're not at the edge. However, if it's not set, then now we need to check this. We're going to compare it with our screen edge. In fact, we'll call it left screen edge, so we can adjust that, and we'll go and set that in a second. If it's equal to that or more than it, then we can just go to skip edge check. We don't need to do anything. However, if it is that, then we need to do a few things. We need to first of all set our fractional value. I'm going to put the +0 in here. It helps sometimes to just do that, so you know that there's more than one value at this location, that it's a multi-byte value. Cool. And so let's go install left screen edge at the top here. let's set that to 18. I think that's probably alright, but let's double check that when we run it. Oh, hi Acnafin. Yeah, there we go. We can probably lower that down a little bit actually. We want him to walk right to the edge of the screen, right? We don't want... Again, we're trying to pay attention to detail here, so... having that little gap there would be slightly annoying. So there we go. He's right at the edge. Can't possibly go past the edge now. And now that's one area he can't get stuck on. So the only other problem we've got is this other edge over here. I'm going to have to put some platforms in to get up there, so let's do that quickly. Let's just... Oops, that was the wrong button. Be nice, I'll do it nice and... I have to get rid of the lollipop man for now. I'll just move him over. Then I'm going to export that map. I'm going to push that to GitHub. I can't play Archon. I don't know what it is about that game. I really struggle with it. I think it's because I'm expecting it to be chess, and it's not. You've got to actually be quite good with your reactions and stuff, and I'm not, so it doesn't work well with me at all. Okay, I've committed that to GitHub now as well, so you should be able to play around with that. So you can see I can walk off that edge there, and actually I do get stuck, but I think the reason I'm getting stuck is because it's actually checking against here. I think if I jump, yeah, run into all sorts of problems. So we're going to block that edge as well. I wish I could play it. I did try to play it. There is actually a video of me somewhere, probably on YouTube, of me playing. At the beginning of the year I did some 64 gameplay streams on real hardware, playing old games, and one of them was Archon, and I was really bad. Seems better if they can poke their nose just a little off the edge and then stop. Okay, well let's see, because we've got to be careful how far off, as long as it doesn't cause any collision issues. So let's try lowering it down by 4 pixels. Okay, that seems fine. Just getting blocked, so he can't. Oh no! See, he can. Okay, let's increase it slightly. I mean, I'm not saying we can't do this, it's just, for now, do we have ammo collisions? We have ammo that animates and collides with the floor. There we go, that's fine. Nose is still going off slightly. When he stops, his arm is there. Yeah, somebody on YouTube, I still don't know who it is actually, I need to look at their name, but from what I remember their name doesn't match anything I've seen on the stream, so I think they're watching after the stream. Suggested a way of animating the ammo that wouldn't take up any extra memory. and it works really well. So basically what we're doing is the frame of animation depends on which one of the X positions it's in. So there's 4 X positions before the sprite has to be redrawn in a new location. So 0, 2, 4 and 6. And so just in the pre-calculated assets you draw for each column 0, 2, 4 and 6. You draw a different animation in there. So if the sprite stops in midair, then the animation will stop, but the animation actually goes backwards if you shoot left. So if you shoot one way, the animation will play backwards. If you play that way, the animation will play forwards. But for something like a projectile animation, it's absolutely perfect. For X positions, yes. Okay, so I think that's kind of. That's alright. What do you think, Steps? I think that's nice. It still feels like he's right at the edge, and actually when he's throwing, it's not causing any bugs. Kind of nice. We also fixed the we fixed the collision with the background as well. So now the collision. The sprites kind of meld a little bit into the background before disappearing, but they don't cause colour clash, so they actually disappear behind the background, which is nice. Okay, so player control. Here's our check for the screen edge, so we're going to do the same again for the right hand side. We also need to copy this into player 2, so let's go and copy this into player 2 first. Make sure we get this the same. Let's just check exactly where it is. It's just before we set the player state left, so player state is here. And all we need to do is change those to player 2. Everything else stays the same. Okay, and so on the right, walking to the right is this one here. So just before we set the player state, we need to check. So what do we need to check on the right hand side? So on the right hand side, we need to check if the so fractional can be anything, and the lower byte will be, oh god, think of this now. We might have to experiment with this. I couldn't tell you for the life of me where the right screen edge is. I'm going to make a rough guess. It's going to be around about 4 plus 58 minus the width of the sprite. I'm going to say it's 48, so I'm going to say 48 and 0, 1. If it's anything more than this, it needs to cap to this value. So first we're going to check the MSB. This time, if the MSB is 0, then we're not at the edge. And this time I'm going to check the right screen edge. And this time we're going to check if we're less than that value. So if we're less than that value, we do nothing. Otherwise, we need to set these values. So we need to again set the fractional to 0. We don't want that to kind of to affect it. It shouldn't do anyway, but we'll set it to 0 just to be sure. And we want to take the value of right screen edge and set it in here. Yeah, that should be fine. So let's go and set right screen edge here to 48. And give that a try. Let's see where it actually blocks. I think it's probably going to be close, but not quite. So it's only going to work on player 1 at the moment, so let's get over there. Actually, interestingly, our player goes a lot further into the left side than he does on the right side. I'm going to go and check that. Okay, we might need to adjust that ever so slightly. So we want kind of the same that we're getting up here. So with this guy, his nose is in slightly. Here it's kind of, it's a little bit out. So I'm gonna change that first. So I'm gonna move this collision in a little bit. Collisions. Get the left collision here. Let's move that in by 2. Do that on player 2 as well. Probably needs a little bit more, like another pixel more. So guys, by the way, I managed to make 1 bottle of wine last me all night. Yeah, there we go, that feels a little bit better. Oh, so can anybody tell me why that's happening? I think I know why it's happening, but I'd be interested if what else could tell me why they think that's happening. Meantime, I'm going to go and check this side. They're a bit far in the wall that way, so I need to change that. And we're too far, definitely too far in the wall that way. So I'm gonna, first of all, I'm gonna fix right-hand collision. This one here. So I'm gonna add 6 to them first, see if that's enough. I know Nginx, not personally, no. I use Nginx for knowing it. I mean, I know what I need to know. It seems to be about right. It probably needs 1 more pixel over, I think. Let's move it to 20 instead. Do you know what though? This is the feet collision. So actually, the bottom part needs to stay like that. I think. No. Let's move it to that. We can always tweak the collision at a later date. I think it's probably going to need it. Thank you for the follow, Viking Coder. Welcome to the stream. I think you're asking in the wrong place, to be honest. I mean, I know this is a coding stream, but coming into a coding stream and asking a random question about a server technology that's not even being used in the stream is kind of strange, to say the least. You're unlikely to get an answer. I mean, personally, no, I don't know what that is anyway. I know what Nginx is, I know some basic config stuff, but I don't know what that is, so... Ah, damn it, still needs 1 more. I would go and search it on Stack Overflow, dude. That's probably the best place to find out these sort of things. I mean, you're in an assembly language stream for a computer from 1984, so it's unlikely to supply you with the answer, unfortunately. Check Stack Overflow. That's probably your best bet. and sorry we couldn't be any help. Okay, so what I think's happening here is the collision is actually checking screen RAM rather than buffer RAM. Because the screen RAM has these characters going across it, and because the characters are non-colliding, it's basically creating a hole. So if I just try and walk into the wall, nothing happens, but if I shoot, I create a hole for a temporary split second. So what I need to do in here, in our collision routine, in this get character at, I need to go and find that, which is in our utils. There we go, get character at, screen row LSB, there we go. But I need to change that to buffer MSB, and this is why you have a buffer. Viking Coder, hi, thanks, looking forward to your stream. C64 Assembly, great choice for a stream. Yeah, it made sense. So many people are asking me how to do Commodore coding, and it just made a lot of sense to do something like that. I think it was probably Hayes actually who suggested it to me. I probably listened to far too much that Hayes has to say for my own good, but he suggested it, and I've never looked back. I think it's a great suggestion, so I'm thankful for it. How to get Stack Overflow. Yeah. I still think there's one too many pixels over this side, so I'm gonna trim that down a little bit. I think we're looking pretty good, so the only thing I need to do now is sort out that screen edge at the top. But now you shouldn't be able to walk through the wall because now we're using buffer RAM, not screen RAM. It's fine. That's just about right, I think. I'd like to sort out the jump height as well, because if you look, the jump height is just a little bit less than the platform there. I feel like it should be just high enough to get to that platform. So I'm probably going to sort that out as well in a minute, but let's sort out the screen edges. So that's... It actually depends how fast you're moving, seems like. Or, oh no, it's because this ground is blocking here, so... See, we're running into all sorts of weird problems now because our feet are in strange places. Our feet are too far apart, so there's a gap in the middle. It means we're falling down a little bit early, so we may have to adjust these collisions again at some point. I think it might be better if we do walk a little bit into the wall, a bit further into the wall. So it's not going to match what we see at the screen edges. It's going to go maybe another 3 or 4 pixels into the wall. Let's have a think. Yeah, I think because at the moment the problem is we're dropping off platforms too soon, and it's because we're only checking 2 points down at the bottom. So if you look what we're checking now, we're checking pixel 21 on one side and pixel 3 on the other side, which means there's 18 pixels between the two, which means it's possible to get a whole character in the middle that's not being checked. These shouldn't be anything more than 14 pixels apart, so, or 15 apart even. So if you imagine 2 characters with a pixel on the left side of one and a pixel on the right side of the other, there's 14 blank spaces in the middle, but no matter where you move them, it will always be 2 characters. So I'm actually going to move these in a little bit. So at the moment they're 3 and 21, which is 18 apart, so I'm going to move them in 2 on each side. So let's start up here. This one, yeah. So I'm going to move them in 2 pixels on each side. Now they're 14 pixels in the middle, which should be right. So, and see, this is the sort of thing that it's not really about knowing the Commodore. It's just about thinking logically about what you're actually trying to do. You could check collision by checking every pixel on the floor underneath the character's legs. Obviously, that's going to be really, really slow to do that over a massive space. So it makes sense to just check where each foot is, 1 pixel for each foot, and then make the collision simple. Make it a rectangle, because if you start checking collision for the sides of the head as well, you can get into a situation where you can fall off a platform, where you can get his head stuck on it. You can be hanging on by your chin, which, while it would be funny, would not look that great as well. Hard-coded values, yeah. I should probably make these into vars as well at some point. That's a really good idea. I'm going to do that right now. Just thinking about it, that's probably a good idea. So let's do this as and I have to type them in once as well, which is a lot better. Yeah, as Aquavin says, just type them in once and we're all good to go, so... Oops. And while we're here, I'll just reduce this screen edge a little bit as well. I think one of the big problems of dealing with assembly language is you do get very used to hard-coded values. You start doing it all the time and oh, see, look at that, that's annoying. Ah, but this is fine as well. I'll show you why this is fine in a minute. You get used to doing hard-coded values just because of the nature of assembly. It's very easy to end up doing that. So in our get character, wait a minute, no, that shouldn't be happening. Why is that happening? Collision point, yeah, is what we're getting. Get the character at that location. But unless when we go down it's different, it shouldn't be. This is the same. Seven 18. Oh wait, what's this? Wait, what? Oh, this is the floor collision. That's fine. Okay. Whew, I thought it was going crazy then. So we actually have 6 points of collision. So we have 1 for each foot. Then we have 2 on the left edge and 2 on the right edge as well. This game is full of features. I'm still getting stuck in the wall though. Interesting though, that should definitely not be happening now, because now we're using... This is the floor collisions. I'm going to add one to that and take one away from that and just try that quickly. Because... yeah, we stop when we get to the wall. Yeah, that's right. That's fine. Okay, cool. So it's because if you're walking left and right, you need to check 1 pixel ahead in either direction. If you're just falling down, then you just need to check exactly where your feet are. So let's do that for player 2 as well. So we need to add one to that one. Take one away from that one. That's good. Kind of looks, it feels, oh, maybe one pixel over on that side, and I think we're pretty good for that one. In edge 44. Oh. We'll change that jump animation so it's a little bit. Yeah, there we go. That's. So if you look, his nose, look, the kind of blue tip of his nose is completely gone, and is flush with the edge. Have the same on the other side as well. Nose gone, hand flush with the edge. Let's try this guy. Same on that side. Okay, he's sticking into the wall still. Oh, he's sticking into the wall again. What? What? I just fixed that. I would also expect him to fall there, so... let's call it make that 3. I think it needs to fall a bit quicker as well. That's... I think that's possibly the same thing. I'll try that in a second. Yeah, I'm not getting stuck there now. When you're jumping up through a platform, can you jump up again as soon as you start colliding with the platform? No, only when only when your feet land. Until you actually end the jump animation, you can't jump again. So yeah, Aquafina is very good actually. Having the code tested live is a very unique experience for me. I really like it. I wish I could have code tested this quickly at work. The ability to change something and immediately have somebody go, "Oh no, I found a bug," before you've even really done anything. Yeah, this is looking quite solid now. I'm going to change the jump animation, so I want the jump to be just a little bit higher than this platform here, so it doesn't fit. Because at the moment you can't jump onto it like that; it just doesn't work. But you can jump up through it because of the snap feature that happens. So you end up landing about here, and then the snap feature kicks in and says, "Oh, you should be on a platform here," so it snaps you up to it. But you can kind of see it happening. So I'm just going to change that jump arc slightly. So this is our jump arc. It's basically half of the arc, so it's both a jump and a fall table. So you imagine the parabola that forms a jump and a fall. It's symmetrical. So we're just kind of jumping up quicker at the beginning, slowing down towards the end. So all I need to do is just change a couple of these values. So I'm gonna make it jump up a little bit quicker at the beginning, like so. Maybe one more there. That should speed it up a little bit, without making too much of a difference. It should just about give us enough height to get over that. Yeah, so I can jump up onto that platform now on the side, no problem. It feels more natural when I jump up through it as well. Oh, see, there's a problem. And now the snap feature is being a bit too aggressive. So what's happening here? Okay. So it sees these as solid. When maybe it shouldn't be seeing them as solid. I think that's what's happening. Let's have a look. So in here, these, yeah, they're solid. They shouldn't be solid. Because we don't want to collide with them, we want to be able to jump up through them. That's this one here, so that's fine. I think it's just those, so let me save that. Give this a quick test. If it passes my initial test, then I'll what did I go to save then? If it passes my initial test, then I'll save it out to GitHub. Not chars, is it? It's colours that I want. There we go, it's not a problem now. The only time it should ever snap you up to the next platform is if you jump up through and land on a platform. Which is why I've tried to adjust the height so that if our platforms are going to be at this level at the top of a tile, then this works well. We may have to rethink it if we have tiles where the platform is like in the second half of the tile. Say we had one here in the second half of the tile. I'm not sure what would happen, whether we'd actually snap to it or whether we'd fall down. So something we might have to address at some point soon. Okay, I'm going to commit those then. So what if I change some table Table, screen edge, collision adjustments. Jump art adjusted. Cool. Alright, I'm going to take a short break, and then when I come back, I am actually going to play. Only going to play about an hour though, but I'm going to play some PC Engine. I think we're at a good point now. I'm going to play. I don't know what I'm going to play. I'll let you guys choose. But I'm literally going to play an hour because I don't feel that great. So, but I think we've done well tonight. I think. It's been a little bit slow, but it's all been polished, most of it. I mean, we've got character animations on the projectiles, we've got collision kind of working nice. It's feeling really good in terms of playability. The little throw animation works really well, and I think the timings are spot on with that. Yeah, it's just feeling really good. It's kind of slow progress, but we're getting there. I think in the next stream on next Saturday, we'll start looking at adding enemies in, which will be really cool because we'll have some kind of behavior system as well. Yeah, I kind of want to play some PC Engine. I want to treat myself in a slightly difficult night tonight, so I want to relax, play an hour or so. Cool. So that's all committed as well. So if you want to catch up with the stream through GitHub, you can do that. And thank you everybody who's joined tonight for the coding stream. I'm going to take 5 minutes and then we'll play some PC Engine. All right, be right back, guys.